those in a few years. You will. We got one in our middle school.
In 17 years, he usually by like it.
Fast.
Oh, man. We were talking, it's like yesterday that she was born, and now she's graduating.
Yes, sir. We're live. We're ready. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
I always wish I had a daughter just
All right, we'll call the special meeting session of the Bridgeport Council for September 22nd, 2025 to order. Clerk, if you would do the roll call, please.
Mayor Robert Matheny.
Present.
Councilor Don Burton.
present.
Councilor Jason Campbell. Recorder Hank Murray.
Present.
Councilor Clayton Rice.
Present.
Councilor Jacqueline Rominger.
Present.
Councilor Chris Kinney.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. New business, 3.1, report on Deegan Lake Dam issues. Aaron Rill from Terracon Consultants Incorporated. Manager, do you want to start us out?
Sure. So, as you all know, we've had some issues with Deegan Lake Dam, and we contracted with Terracon to do a study on the dam, and that study has been completed. Mr. Reel has some recommendations for us that he's presented to staff in one form or another, and that's kind of been a back and forth process. He has put some, the final investigation together. We've been kind of waiting. He wanted to bounce everything off the DEP and kind of get their blessing, in the thought that there was no reason to go forward with any suggestions if the DEP didn't agree with it. So we've been through that process, and Aaron is here today to bring you guys up to speed, talk about the situation itself, give you a little background, give you Terracon's recommendation on how to proceed, and I've also asked him to present some engineering estimates for this time frame on a couple of the options, just so, for planning purposes, we will know that too. So I think at this time, do we want Aaron to use that microphone over there? Would that help? Okay. Yeah, so Aaron, there's a microphone behind you there at the podium, and you can either grab the microphone or use the podium, whatever is easier for you, and that'll come around the front there. So that way, at least our live streaming folks can at least hear you. So there you go.
All right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good counselors. As Joe has mentioned, my name is Aaron Reel. I'm a senior engineer and the office manager for the Morgantown branch of Terracon Consultants. We're a nationwide firm. I have about 20 years of experience in engineering and dam-related rehabilitation projects. We were selected by the city just, I think the original RFP came out just about a year ago. And we were selected at the beginning of this year, and we've been spending our time for the last 8 or so months working through kind of our investigation, some of our engineering analyses, and starting with, and then now we're to this point, as Joe gave a quick synopsis of where we're at. So what I'd like to do is really just kind of bring council up to speed with kind of some of the background that we've already discussed with staff a couple times, beginning with some of our key observations, significant findings. We'll talk about what our recommendations are, kind of where we see based on our experiences with similar projects, what the next kind of steps will be, recommendations, and talk about next steps. And then, of course, if we have time, I'd love to, if you guys have any questions, if council has any questions, be happy to answer and kind of discuss anything else moving from that. So our task with the city of Bridgeport was divided up into several phases. The first phase that we had with the city was to kind of do a preliminary assessment where we took a look at all the desktop review and kind of an initial site visit where we looked at the historical documentation, both from the original construction back in the 1950s all the way up through some of the Army Corps reports, and then contemporary dam inspection reports that the city has done over the years. So we looked at the layout, the general condition, and then reviewed all the way up through. Council may be aware of the 2007-2008 rehabilitation project that was undertaken, which kind of brings us up to where we are today. So just to start to talk about some preliminary terminology associated with the dam, just so we're all speaking kind of the same language. Your dam is about 300 feet long, 30 feet high. It's got a concrete core wall. The principal spillway is on the left abutment. You have what we call the riser structure in the lake, an outlet that outlets the Davison Run, and then a conduit pipe which goes from the riser structure into the outlet at Davison Run. Deegan Dam was built in 1950 by the city of Bridgeport. As I mentioned, it's about 32 feet high, 300 feet long. It's a rock fill. It was originally built as a rock fill embankment with a concrete core and a 40-foot wide spillway. At that time, the tunnel and a wet well was a 3x4 box culvert, and here on the upstream side, there is a wood and steel drain gate on that riser structure, which prevents water from entering the tunnel and going over the spillway. At the time, it was at the time the well was full of water and had 8-inch steel pipes which fed water. Those have since been in 2008 rehabilitation program. Those were since grouted, abandoned, and removed. In 1979, the Army Corps issued what they called their Phase 1 assessment, and they noticed seepage coming out of the 3x4 box culvert at that time. About 15 feet left, they called us. So they were looking at the from the downstream side. A lot of terminology for what I'll be using will be looking downstream. So the Army Corps report will say left, but I'll really mean right, and left and right vice versa. So I'll try to keep it straight. By all means, if there's any questions, just please feel free to stop me and say, which direction are you talking about? Totally fine. So they noticed the dam was really overgrown. There was some flowing water observed outside the culvert. But other than that, the core wall's uniform alignment, along with some slight spalling and just concrete deterioration. Between 1979 and 2007, the dam appeared to have been used as kind of a spoil area, a refuse pile. A lot of demolition waste was placed on the downstream side. The city had placed some concrete pipe in there to kind of keep the water flowing, but really had just kind of piled debris and material up on that. And eventually the state said, hey, we can't have that anymore, so we need you guys to do a rehabilitation program. And that's when the 2007 program was undertaken. At that point, the downstream embankment was flattened to 3-to-1 reinforced concrete. Overtopping protection was placed on it, a new cutoff wall to tow. The upstream slope was reestablished to its original 1.5 to 1 slope. It had kind of steepened up over the years, so they went back and reestablished that slope. However, there were no modifications to the conduit pipe were done. They kind of focused all their efforts to the earthwork and kind of making sure that concrete was placed so that if the dam ever did overtop, it would be protected, which of course is very important. But the conduit pipe was kind of left alone. So here's just a cross section of your dam showing kind of what was done after 2007. So this shows just the concrete on the downstream face. They had kind of stubbed in that 24-inch concrete pipe, placed some sand and some gravel around it to direct flow, and put a little rock on the upstream side and kind of grouted and put topsoil and seed on everything else. And it looks really good from the outside right now. As we were reviewing the construction documentation during our initial review of the project, we found a few things that kind of raised some eyebrows to us that kind of happened during the construction project. So in September of 2007, there were some reports in the construction documents that once they sort of removed all that construction debris and exposed the top of the pipe, they noticed there was quite a bit of water that was still flowing in the pipe and around the pipe. And they said since there was no leaks in the pipe where the riser had been out in the past, they believed the drain valve, which is that wood, had been leaking. So this was on September 7th. So they decided they were going to cover that concrete pipe with some steel and some plastic sheeting, and just kind of put a bucket of concrete on top and kind of seal that up, which they were successfully able to do. So these pictures are from that day. It is kind of hard to see, so what I've done is I've added some highlighting to these photos. So the box culvert, you remember in that original photo, had a kind of a sloped face where this is the original dam right there, and this is all the new fill that was placed. Then the pipe was coming kind of stubbed in there and sealed with some concrete. And then here on the right-hand side is the gap in that pipe that they identified once they uncovered everything, in which they in turn put some plastic and metal over top and went to seal it. So then, flash forward to September 11th, 2007. The seep that they saw. Now we're talking. So even though they're talking right side, we're talking left side in the core. So again, they're using more contemporary terminology where we're looking downstream. So that's on the right side of the pipe, whereas the Army Corps was looking at the dam and they were looking at the left side. So the same area. Anecdotally, contractor said he saw little fish swimming in the water. Who knows if that's really true or not, but that's what they said. And so at that time, they said the water flows clear, so we don't anticipate any, it's not bringing material from the dam in, so we'll put some additional gravel in there, and that'll just keep the water flowing in a controlled manner. And we'll put in consultation with the DEP at that time, that was all approved. So, and then they built the dam back to the way it was. So this is just me highlighting that. So here's some additional photos showing where when they had tried to run a camera in there, they weren't able to get it, so they actually broke one of the pipes, put some more steel over top of it, put some more concrete over top of that, and went to try to fix it when the crawler camera became stuck. So again, just some field, some running and gunning in the field, went to try to fix the problem at hand. So here's what I was previously mentioning. So since the water was flowing clear, the engineer of record at the time worked with the state, and they came up with a plan which was reasonable to just put stone in there, keep the water flowing, and then control it as best they can, as long as it's not becoming dirty and bringing, what we would worry about, bringing fines into that and drawing material out of the dam. Water on its own isn't, a clear water would be something just to monitor over time, but not necessarily something to be concerned with or in their mind at the time. So here's just showing some of those additional modifications. So this is where the water was flowing. So they put so redlining means that this was a field change. So the original plan called for just these two L-shaped pipes right at the end. So they added an additional pipe in here to capture some of that water, and added a second outlet pipe. So if you go to where that drain pipe is, you'll see two pipes on the left-hand side and one pipe on the right-hand side of the big pipe. That's just one of those is that additional pipe that they put in. Even though they originally called for just one pipe, 1 6-inch pipe on each side, they added that 8-inch one on the right side. So this brings us to 2025. So this is when we started working with staff to start our field investigations. This was in February of this past year. One of the first things we wanted to do, we were really interested in doing, was running some more additional cameras inside that conduit to see what we could see, because we knew there was water coming out of that pipe. See if we could get an idea of where it was coming from. So working with staff and the local city fire department, we went out there and performed some inspections, both looking downstream in the box culvert and looking upstream in the RC pipe. So we had some of the same issues during our investigations that the original contractors did, and that we could not advance our pipe much further than that junction box. So yeah, again, something's going on. We couldn't quite get any further past that. So that was our camera. That was one of our key things we wanted to do in this program, was really run that camera inside. Following that, that's when we did our geotechnical investigation. We had 7 borings planned for this project. We were able to complete 4 across the crest of the dam. You've probably seen our piezometers, those yellow pipes sticking out of the ground. We monitor those periodically to measure the water level in the dam. We also, on the abutments, we advanced 2 borings to determine top of rock elevation, where previous investigations didn't advance, so we could gain some additional information at that point. We also performed a geophysical investigation consisting of seismic lines where, we basically run what geophones across the surface, and we hit a steel plate with a hammer, and we measure how the sound waves travel through the subsurface, and that's what we do there as an attempt to characterize, is the subsurface rock, is it compacted soil, or is it real loose? Has it been? Is there something we should be looking for? And so we'll show you some plots here. So this is just some of our field work. Also field work. It's all be included in our final report to city. And that's on the upper right-hand corner there. That's our geophysicists doing the seismic study. That phase of our work was followed up with some engineering and reporting, where we did some analyses of the slopes, the stability of the dam. We modeled it in software. Each of those color-coded layers is a different layer that we identified either from the geotechnical investigation through drilling or from historical construction documentation. So you've got the concrete core wall, the rock fill, the new fill that was placed in 2007, the underlying bedrock, etc. These are kind of our geophysical results. So it kind of looks like a heat map showing different areas that may be solid, areas that may be soft. Really the only thing we did kind of note on this one was a soft area, which, didn't notice anything that really jumped out to us, but, something that could be, if this blue line is about where the conduit pipe was, and this area right here is where that concrete RCP pipe was abutted into that box culvert, we did notice an anomaly in that area. So that could be indicative of, so this is the velocity of the sound waves. So the low velocity meaning it's getting bound up in air or water or something. So we did notice an anomaly in that area. So jumping into, what are observed deficiencies did we notice with the dam? So number one, the upstream slope stability didn't meet the minimum factor of safety. That 1.4, 1.5, regulations have since changed from some of those earlier times, and now the upstream slope stability requires a minimum of a 1.5. So right now it's not as though it's unsafe or anything, it just doesn't have that higher level of, it doesn't meet the minimum factor of safety of current dam safety requirements. So it does, so this shows 1.3, and then in another condition well, I'll talk about that a little bit more. I'll see if this video actually plays. So this is leakage in the box culvert. So this is, we were running our camera. This is so after staff was able to help us lower the camera down in through the riser structure, we were able to drive it upstream, and then until we got to about where the core wall was, and we noticed at that point we weren't able to advance the camera any further because of the calcification on the side walls. There's also calcification on the floor, which with the crawler camera wasn't able to advance over that. But we were able to look down with the camera zoomed down. There weren't any other leakages in the box culvert besides this. So this would correspond roughly with the core wall, which would also then correspond roughly with those 1979 reports and anecdotal evidence from that 2007, which said there was some leakage and patching inside the box culvert. Somebody did crawl in there at one point. So since we were stopped at about the core wall on the way downstream, we took the camera to the toe of the dam and then ran upstream. So this is now coming upstream in that concrete pipe that is daylighted at Davison Run. So the water in there is the water that's feeding Davison Run right now. That's in a condition like we have today. There's no water going over the spillway, so all the water that's in Davison Run is coming through that pipe, which would arguably be not what you would want to you would not want to feed your through leaking pipes. And then coming up here, this is about where the stub is, and this is where we encountered a significant blockage. We couldn't advance any further. This would be approximately the location of where in 2007 we believe that the previous contractor, when they tried to patch that broken pipe, the patch failed, the concrete fell into the water at that point, and is now in the pipe itself. And each of those joints is water coming in each of those joints.
Question on that.
Yes, sir.
So there should be no water in that pipe, or it's the water that we see streaming, like small little waterfalls coming in?
Well, the water that's in that pipe is the water that's coming from the box culvert and through those streamers. when we ran the camera into the pipe, that stop log was relatively watertight. So the water that we're seeing in that pipe is actually coming in from outside. It's following the path of least resistance, if you will. So I'll talk about that here in a minute. So another observed deficiency, which was noted on some of our the inspection reports, so the inoperable drain system. So in 1950, there was a wooden and steel stop log installed at the very upstream side. That was designed to raise and lower it, so you could raise and lower the level of the dam. Over time, it's just exposed to water. It's just how they built it. It's since been corroded and is now no longer operable. So that stop log is there, relatively watertight. It just can't be raised or lowered, which again, I'll get into why that's something the Dam Safety Department will want that to be addressed, and that's been noted on previous inspection reports that the next time that the city does draw down the reservoir, they'll replace that. That's already been acknowledged. So again, dam safety rule requires the drain system is maintained and it's opened annually. That's a safety feature. It's basically a safety valve for a dam. If water's rising rapidly and is about, we prefer to have water go out through a controlled manner than overtop the dam, which can cause damage downstream. Even though it's got that concrete protection, it's still going to cause a big mess that somebody's going to have to clean up. So better to open that and let the water out in a controlled manner and protect the dam. So the fact that that is a noted item that the state is aware of, and that previous reports from the city engineer previously had mentioned that would be addressed.
Where's that controlled?
So at the top, it's no longer there. I think Tiny can probably speak to that a little bit more. But on top, there's a hand-operated wheel that used to be there that would it's basically an big long screw that would go up, and as you turned that many times around in a circle, it would raise. It would raise that up. So
if we're in a flood situation, the only way to go open that is to go out there.
There's no way to open it right now. It's not operable.
If it were operable.
If it was operable, the only way is to take a boat out of it. So one of the things as we talk about operation and maintenance down in the future is the city interested? Would they want to put a catwalk across? Would they want to do something like that so that those are all options on the table. Lots of different facilities do. You could do electrically operated. You can do remote control. There's lots of different ways you could do that. But yeah, as in the most basic form, if you would have to go out there by hand and open that up by taking a boat, climbing a ladder, getting on top of that, and opening it. And it would mostly be raining really hard when you were doing that. So understanding the deficiencies that we uncovered when we were out there, let's talk about potential remediation recommendations that we would have based on our experience. So we've already spoke. Joe and I were on a call. Mr. Shuttleworth and I were on a call with DEP, and we kind of talked through these things, and we kind of wanted to get some buy-in from them on if we were to present these to the Dam Safety Department, how would this be looked upon? Would you guys feel this would, is this something that would, fly? We could get a permit to do. And what we really settled on was a two-phase approach, given the conditions that we have out there. I think phase one, what our recommendation would be, would try to minimize that seepage. Right now, the seepage there's that reinforced concrete core wall is compromised in some manner, and so what we would recommend to do is to try to minimize that seepage as much as possible, and that is a relatively and that's talking with DEP Dam Safety. They would indicate that could probably be done as a part of a dam maintenance program, because we're not modifying a dam, we're just going in and trying to correct a deficiency. Now, this would obviously have to be, submitted and still have to go, but the two ways, when you do maintenance on a dam, there's a routine repair, and then there's what they call a dam modification, and that's really where we start talking about phase two. And phase two is where, that conduit pipe is leaking, there's a collapsed area, it's obstructed, slip lining it would be an option. That's putting a smaller pipe inside a larger pipe. Unfortunately, with that blockage there, that means that's not really possible. And so what we would look, and we don't know how much material's been lost over the years from that water flowing in. So, some of that's we would recommend, that 24-inch pipe be replaced, a new seepage filter would be installed, and of course, if the water level was drawn down to do that, we'd go ahead and replace the drain grate, put a new gate, trash rack, all that stuff on the upstream side. And then if there's any desire to do, enhancements such as a catwalk or some operators that may be different functionality on top, we would look at doing that at that time. So in a little bit more detail, what does phase one, what does that look like really? So again, with the goal of reducing water infiltration into the pipe, where it's most likely occurring around the penetration of that box culvert through that concrete core wall, we would recommend to look at performing an internal and external drilling and grouting program where we look to inject chemical grout polyurethane, a special kind of polyurethane, and a special type of acrylate grouting. Sometimes that's referred to as chemical grouting, as opposed to injecting cement grout or kind of traditional flowable fill or something. This is a special type of grout that reacts fast with water, so it's not going to infiltrate that pipe. It's going to see the water. It's going to react fast. It's going to seal those leaks. It's going to fill those voids, and hopefully reduce that seepage down as low as possible. And then keep that water on the upstream side of the dam rather than flowing into that pipe and going into and feed Davidson Run from the spillway, or rather than through cracks in the pipe. So this is a proven program. This is another project where this was done. Typically, this was a similar issue. The conduit pipe here had seepage that was going around the outside, and so went at the crest of the dam, relatively small equipment, small working platform. So this is something that we've seen success with in other projects with similar issues. So then phase two, replace the conduit pipe and do some other improvements to the dam. So unfortunately, to do this work safely, it would require an extended drawdown for at least a construction season of the reservoir, because we'd be working on the downstream side, having open excavations, having some head of water on the upstream side would be undesirable. So unfortunately, we would recommend draining the reservoir. Coffer dams would be potential, but from a cost standpoint, it's one of those, you're looking at a lot of additional cost to construct a coffer dam for maybe, if we can keep this construction to a short time window, it would be short-term gain for a good bit of extra expense. So again, excavate and remove the 24-inch conduit pipe, replace it. We would propose to, with based on some further analysis of hydraulic conditions, we would look to that pipe. We estimate that pipe would be in the 18 to 24-inch size, so replacing it pretty much in kind. However, with new technologies, using welded HDPE pipe, which that's same as you see the gas lines going down the road at a 4 or 8-inch diameter, this would just be a much larger diameter. So again, pretty common. Local contractors have this capability. It's something that local contractors are able to do. So we would continue that pipe through the box culvert all the way to the end and grout that void. So now you have basically a continuous pipe, has no joints going from the upstream to the outlet, so water cannot enter that pipe. It'd stay on the outside. We would install a new filter collar and drains around that new conduit to capture any water that did continue and manage in a controlled manner. Address the stability concerns by flattening that upstream slope from 1.5 to 1 to 2 to 1. Remove that existing stop log and stem and replace with a new gate, stem, and operator. I didn't include any sort of other enhancements like the bridge, because again, that's not a requirement for dam safety. That's really a operation and maintenance, your folks out there in the field. So this just shows, we ran the analysis within flattening that slope, so going 2 to 1 with just some additional rock material, just giving some additional support, that will give it to that 1.5. So we feel confident that would pass. So a filter collar, this is also a pretty common rehabilitation method for where you have seepage in dams. So we would excavate, so usually sand, that's capturing that. It's keep trying to filter that water so all the soil particles stay in the dam. And for this particular project, the recommendation is applicable where we're only considering flow. If we do that upstream grouting program, we're only concerning with flow along that contact, because other than where we think the penetration is, you have a pretty intact core wall. And then FEMA guidance is the document that we would follow. So that's, that's what we would use for our design methodology. And here's what it would look like if you were looking at it, again, looking at downstream side. You would have kind of those pipes, some gravel to capture the water, some sand to further filter it, and then new embankment material would surround that new pipe. And here's kind of what it would look like in plan view, just so you can see all the pieces and parts of what this would look like. Our proposed remediation plan would consist, again, phase 1 here in the blue, that's the chemical grout collar. Phase 2, that would be kind of, again, I would kind of call it open heart. We would go the downstream end and just open it up with some temporary shoring, and just where we wanted to. We wouldn't open up. We would leave what's there intact. So we would use a 3-sided box, utility type excavation in there. We would have to remove some of that concrete and replace it. Stub in run that new butt welded HDPE pipe all the way up and install a new sluice gate. we would propose to put the sluice gate on the inside of the wall rather on the outside, and then install a trash rack right here. That way, being on the outside, it's kind of exposed to sediment and stuff going in there. We would propose to move it to the inside, and then your well could then function as a wet well and as being additional spillway capacity. And then put a trash rack here and maybe some additional orifices along that, so that you could gain some additional hydraulic capacity before the dam overtopped by using your existing tower structure. So we've talked about phase 1 and phase 2. Why did we talk about phase 1 and phase 2? A lot of it comes down to funding, and so we'll talk about what the next steps may look like. So kind of next steps after I met with Mr. Shuttleworth last time, we wanted to have this working session with City Council to let them ask any questions, make sure that there was an understanding of what we've been working with staff up to date. We will perform our 2025 periodic dam safety inspections for the city. That's a task order we've already received. We look to complete that probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We need to submit that back to the DEP by the end of October. And then, then look at what this phase 1, this phased approach to the remediation program. So phase 1, what we would call routine maintenance. Prepare a submittal package, work with the city on bidding and contractor support, and perform construction observation. Why we wanted to break those into 2 pieces is because, one, permitting timeline for a dam modification at phase 2 can be long, up to a year, 18 months to take before you can get a dam modification permit through the city, because they have staff that has to review everything and has to go through all that process. Whereas a routine maintenance project is really just kind of an informative process. There's, you submit kind of what you're planning to do, but it's not modifying the structure of the dam. We're just trying to address some deficiencies in there, and that's a much quicker timeline, which can hopefully address some of that infiltration and help water levels stay during some of these drier conditions late summer. Also with that, obviously that larger, involved, more construction project has a higher price tag with it, which may mean that funding may take time. We want to pursue different grant opportunities, different programs that may be out there to assist the city with that, and there's a timeline associated with that. So rather than try to do everything at one time, take a phased incremental approach, which allows us to attack one problem at a time, and then once all the funding and the permits are in place, which we can apply for the permit and get that can be in hand, and the project can be put on the shelf while we're waiting for funding. The 2 aren't necessarily tied together other than the execution of the project. So from that perspective, but also just for the permitting timeline, we thought it would be appropriate to break it up into a phased approach. And then Terracon can certainly assist with any funding request. The most probable program is a FEMA high hazard dam fund that's specifically geared to governmental entities. Private folks can't apply to it. It's administered by the state, so the state applies for it on behalf of would apply for it on behalf of the city. We would need to have some better idea of what these projects would cost, what would go in, maybe part of that funding application. But that's something that Mr. Shuttleworth, on our call, we talked about that, and they're aware of that program. They've worked with some other folks on that, and they would be willing to help us with that, or help the city with that as well through that process. But that's really that final phase, and again, that would be looking at, you know, next year or the year after, or, you know, potentially once the monies were in place and the permits were in place. And that's my last one. I thought I had a question slide, but so yeah, excuse me. That is basically brings us up to speed where we're at now. Kind of the next, you know, really what we're here to talk about is, you know, we have. Assuming there's concurrent, you know, we work with the city. We will continue with our final submissions of inspection reports and kind of our final investigation reports and all this cost estimating and everything to kind of get that in a documented format for the city. And then, you know, pending the city decision, if they would like to pursue a phase one approach or what they would like to do, then we can help you guys through that process as well.
Aaron, can you provide some engineering estimates on the two plans, including possibly engineering fees?
Yeah.
Just your guesstimates
Yeah,
there.
so we spoke, I'll take a little bit further than a guesstimate. We've already spoken with several contractors, local contractors and specialty contractors for this. And again, I've been involved with this for about 20 years. So phase one, that drilling and grouting program, that's a specialty contract. I mean, there are local firms that do that, but a lot of that you require specialty equipment, specialty knowledge. But however, the smaller scope of that, and that can be quicker through the permitting, and that would maybe kind of more of a design build approach for that, because the city would probably want to give more or less, here's a performance that we want to see, and then let the contractors kind of give their best value. So you could have we've seen quite a swing in those prices from what we've talked to so far, but, you know, we think a reasonable estimate, including some construction observation time, would be around, you know, $200,000 or so for that phase one approach. Now, when you get to the phase two, that's, you know, multi-month construction phase. It would maybe a full construction season, pending any weather disruptions. Obviously some excavation, some heavier equipment, more on-site support from engineering and construction time, and obviously Terracon's time that would go into the application phase, design phase, and then construction, bidding support, and all that. We think, including engineering fees, that would probably be closer to about $800,000. So really, right around that $1.1 to $1.5 million for the entire project, I think. And that obviously, that's, you know, we'll see what the prices and the contingencies with tariffs and everything are, but where we stand today, and it's even gone up a little bit from when we talked a couple months ago.
So on the second part, the 800,000 part, if we were successful in one of the FEMA high hazard dam grants, what kind of payback do you normally see with that? What percentage, or how does that normally work?
Well, you're putting me on the spot, and I'm not 100% sure on what those. I know there is sort of a different structure with those, because again, it's administered by the state, and the state, depending on the administration, does have some sort of revolving monies that go along with that. I think that fund is exhausted right now, but I think there are some other mechanisms that the state has for that. So I could follow that up with a more detailed breakdown. But I do think if I recall correctly, there was some cost sharing involved in that.
Darren, with the phase one, is there a possibility that phase one would take care of the problem and not have to go to phase two, or is it, one depending on the other?
Well, I think, again, it comes down to desired outcomes, right? I mean, is the desired outcome to keep the lake as full as possible for the most public recreation? I think phase one could go a long way towards accomplishing that. If we can attack the seepage problem, and we can keep the lake holding more water for longer, I think that's a net positive for the community. However, there are other deficiencies with the dam that, regardless of what we do to mitigate the problem, the sluice gate doesn't operate. So now you could do that in the wet work. You could have divers go down and replace that. I mean, that without drawing down the reservoir. But fundamentally, there are some other problems that I think there would be at least have to be discussed with the state at some point, whether that's continuing maintenance, whether that's additional monitoring at a higher frequency. But I think to addressing that infiltration of that pipe is priority one, and that's why we've identified that as phase one.
Thank you.
If we were to approve phase one, how quickly could you mobilize for that, and what do you think is the best time of year to do that? Or
Well, the nice
we're
thing
in drought now, is that the best time to take care of it?
Yeah, I mean, while the water's low is the best, because you're not fighting the water pressure then when you're trying to grout. And this work is relatively weather independent, because we're not doing large excavations, and this is drilling and injecting some chemical grout in the ground that doesn't use water as a medium, so it's not going to freeze. So this is something that could be started right away, and might, as soon as got to a point where there was ready to start construction, I think it's not something that would have to wait until April or May of next year. It could be undertaken as quick as the coordination with the various contractors and the state could make it happen.
So probably within a couple months of us approving?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I mean, we would probably get through the holidays, but yeah, I think that would be reasonable.
Aaron, just for clarity with council, so the options we have now, number one, we do nothing, and you get a dry condition, say like we've had here for the last month or so, and we will see the lake levels continue to drop. There's no water coming in, water going out. Obviously, it's going to drop. If we did phase one, if it is successful, we would see less of that, even in dry conditions. But we still have issues to fix on the dam.
I think so.
So now, if we just said we're going to live with what the dam is, and we just said we're going to go after grant funding and everything else, and we want to do phase two only, that would fix all the issues, correct? Or would we still have issues we need to fix at the same time?
I think you would still want to at least, it would be, while you have the area open, I think it would be prudent to try to address the seepage, because if it's coming through that concrete wall, just replacing the pipe isn't if you made a solid pipe if you replace that jointed pipe where we saw the water going through the joints, if you replace that with a solid pipe, that water's now just going to travel all the way down an outlet out through those toe drain pipes.
Makes sense, yeah.
So it's just moving the problem downstream, kicking the water downstream. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Real.
Thank you.
Very good.
Appreciate your
report.
time.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to 3.2, discussion and, if appropriate, act on the demand in Patrick Ford versus City of Bridgeport, West Virginia. I would suggest maybe that we go into executive session to discuss that. Is anybody's pleasure?
So the question I have there is, I mean, I can understand maybe some of the discussion needs to be in executive session, but will we make public the demand?
I was going to, if we go into executive session, I was going to ask legal to advise us on that.
Because that was my biggest concern with all this the whole way through, is public disclosure, and I think as much of this needs to be disclosed as possible before we vote on it. But I can understand going into executive session for initial discussions to verify all that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Any other comments on that? Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor to go into executive session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Okay, we'll recess into executive session. Call for a motion to go back in regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, go back in regular session. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Any action on 3.2, discussion and if appropriate, act on demand in Patrick Ford versus City of Bridgeport, West Virginia?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny Patrick Ford's demand in item 3.2.
Motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion among council?
I want to make sure it's known that, I vehemently disagree with the fact that we are not disclosing what the demand was. I think it absolutely should be in public record, and the citizens have every right to know what that demand was. I think that would help understand why we are voting the way we are, and then we could better explain why each one of us individually wants to vote that way. But under advice of council, we were strongly encouraged not to disclose it. So I just want to make sure that's out there. I strongly disagree with this, though.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries. Motion, is there a motion to adjourn from a special session?
So moved.
Motion second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. Special session is adjourned. Folks, sorry that we're running just a bit late. We got involved in discussions, with that being said, I will call the regular council meeting in the city of Bridgeport for September the 22nd, 2025 to order. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Robert Matheny,
Present.
Councilor Don Burton,
Present.
Councilor Jason Campbell, Recorder Hank Murray,
Present.
Councilor Clayton Rice,
Present.
Councilor Jacqueline Rominger,
Present.
Councilor Chris Kenny.
Present.
Thank you. Father Wald, I know I saw you there. If everybody would stand for the invocation by Father Walt Jagula of All Saints Catholic Church.
As we gather here this evening, may we remember that we are in God's presence. And Father God, creator of all good things, we praise and we thank you for this evening hour. We thank you that we can gather here in freedom, and we just ask for your Holy Spirit to dwell here and to direct all of our efforts for the good of our city, our community, its citizens, its leadership. We just ask for your Spirit to be with us always, to lead and guide us in all things. And as we give honor and glory to you, we give honor to family and to each person gathered here. And in the God who created us, redeemed us, and makes us whole, we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you would remain standing, I'll ask the members of the Bridgeport Lions Club to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, item 5, approved minutes of the September 8th, 2025 regular city council meeting.
So moved.
Motion and second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Number 6, Madam Clerk, I didn't get you got it? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
We'll get to catch our breath here for just a second. Okay, there's nobody signed up for public comments, but if there's anybody here that would like to comment, raise your hand and we'll get you to the podium. Seeing none, we'll move on with the report by the mayor. I'll be very brief. First of all, I want to thank the recorder, members of council, and staff for coming in early and possibly staying late this evening. We have a lot of business at hand, and also want to thank everybody council-wise for their kind and consideration of each other on serious matters that we have to discuss. So appreciate that. Also want to report that the West Virginia Economic Development Council is holding their annual meeting here in Bridgeport. Tomorrow, myself and the city manager will be attending some workshops there, so we certainly want to make them feel welcome. Report by interim city manager.
As normal, I've given you guys a pretty detailed report from all of our department heads, and as normal, I will not read the whole thing to you in lieu of time. We'll highlight a few things. I did want to highlight with the library director Rafter. They have a current reading challenge called Read the Feed, and for every 2,000 minutes that our community reads through the end of December, Heifer International will provide a flock of chicks to a family in need. And they're a nonprofit that helps families lift themselves from poverty through farming. So you can go to the library's website and get information on that. I just found that to be very interesting. Up at the bridge, we had a triathlon this weekend on Saturday, and we had rave reviews from the participants over the triathlon that was held Saturday. We had a lot of volunteers that helped with that. The VIPs were tremendous in helping with that, and all the staff did a wonderful job up there. Lots of rave reviews. And if you look on the last page of your report, you will see a picture of Ginger Getz, who is our fitness manager at the triathlon. This was her outfit to encourage the people at the finish line. So shows you the energy and dedication of some of the staff up there. So the cemetery will be doing some fence replacement between the neighbors and some of our property this week. Community development, 719 permits have been filed this year for $80.7 million in construction. So there's some work going on at the airport, $6.3 million in storm drain, runway pavement, and sewer work. I will mention that the Planning Commission will meet next Tuesday and at 4 o'clock, and there's a public meeting for individuals wishing to view and comment on the comprehensive plan. Emergency management, we interviewed firms for the emergency operations plan, and we expect to have that contract ready for council approval at the next meeting. The fire department has worked on some repairs this week to the burn building and the roof up at Company 52. We did have an incident Saturday at the Dairy Queen building on Main Street, which resulted in the power being disconnected from the building. And when I left there a little while ago, it was still out. There was no fire damage. It was electrical in nature, and nobody was hurt or anything like that. I know our guys responded very quickly and efficiently. Parks and Recreation, I'll report out at the pickleball courts, we've been having some parking issues. So I met with our striping individuals, and we came up with a plan that's going to create 16 additional parking spots that in addition to the ones that are there. There's some parallel parking spots. We're going to dig into the hillside a little bit and make those pull-in spots. So I think that's going to solve a lot of the problems that we've had out there with parking. There's had some information on the ABB Scarecrow program and then their Trick or Treat Downtown program, and we'll talk about that at another time. The police department work continues on their training building. The floors are poured and the walls are starting to go up. And Chief Rogers would like to give a big thank you to our Public Works concrete crew and how amazing they've been. Public Works, they've been working on a lot of water leaks as the ground gets dry with the drought that we've been having. We see a lot of pipes start moving, which causes a lot of water leaks. So if you've seen an increase in that, it's generally due to the dry conditions. Also, the paving project started today on Sherwood Road and will continue for the next couple of weeks. So Sherwood Road, Sherwood Circle, Philadelphia Avenue, Olive Street, Willis Avenue, Lower 4th Street, 1st Street, Geneva Street, and Newton Street will all be paved. And we ask anyone traveling in those areas to be cognizant of that and slow down a little bit. So, the wastewater treatment plant, we received the results from the West Virginia Department of Health 2025 sanitary survey. No significant issues were found. A few minor things, and they said that our drinking water supply and we should be very proud of our staff down there, and they do an excellent job with all that. Couple general notes. The mayor and I, and along with others, we've met with the DOH and some folks from the county, with Senator Queen and Mike Queen about the covered bridge down by the mall, and we're working. We're going to do some cooperative efforts to clean the area up, to improve the sight lines to see the bridge. And then we're going to look at some ownership issues and see how the city can be involved. And, you know, that may come back to this council to determine how much we want to be involved in that, or even possibly taking it over. So there's some options there that we'll be bringing forward to you guys in the future. I have Chief Rogers has been working on some e-bike issues and looking at some policies and some training. And that's one of the big things we think we can tackle pretty quickly. And he's talked to some of the local retailers in the area that are interested in helping do some training to train the children. We've already had at least one pretty significant injury with involving an e-bike, and when we see that is probably getting worse because we've been having more and more problems with the e-bikes. So that may end up being, you know, a suggestion coming forward to the council for an ordinance that deals with e-bikes. So we've received numerous complaints from that. They mentioned the things. I do have a couple letters. I tend to field a lot of complaints. But I have 3 that I just thought I'd share real quick that were positive. So if somebody takes the time out of their day to make a positive comment, I think those employees need to be recognized. So this one that says, to the employees of Public Works Street Department, all your hard work clearing the bushes and trees along Worthington Drive is greatly appreciated. It made an improvement to the landscape and safety of the street, and that is from LaDonna Wetzel. I also received a letter from Thomas Corder on Philadelphia Avenue, and he wanted to commend our Public Works Department for their recent assistance in helping him find a solution for a serious sewer issue. He said he was impressed by their professionalism and motivation to be of service to everyone they encountered, and he was experiencing some issues with some medical issues with his family, and was hard to be home, and our guys went above and beyond to help, and he wanted to do that. The other thing, and I'm going to point out, is the Parks Department. I had a gentleman come up to me the other day and said that he was so impressed at how clean the parks are, and especially the restrooms. He said that's the sticking point there, and he said, you know, he's always impressed that when he gets there to walk in the mornings that everything is clean and tidy, and wanted to send a shout out to those guys. So that's all I have for today.
Good report, thank you. Next on the agenda is awards and presentations. If we could ask Chief Hart and members of the fire department to come forward, and also our visitors from the Bridgeport Lions Club.
We just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the Bridgeport Lions Club. The fire department has always been supportive of our efforts, particularly the golf ball drop. For several years now, they've donated their time and their effort to help make the fundraiser a success. The fundraiser raises significant funds for different charitable causes and organizations in our area. And we wanted to say thank you, and so we wanted to present the fire department with a check for $400 to be put to use as you all see fit. Thank you so much, Steve.
Now, we're just glad to help them out. First year they did that, we was a little hesitant about how it was going to be and what was going to happen, but the guys really enjoy going up there. They kind of look forward to it each year now, and we're just glad to be able to help them out and take part in the community.
Amazing thing. Doug, I know you want to do a little recruitment speech.
Yeah, I just wanted to say if anybody either watching or present has a passion for serving their community and helping make it a better place, we're always looking for new members. We have meetings on the first and third Thursdays of every month at the Benedict Civic Center. And coming up on October 11th, we have our annual chicken roast, and we're donating a significant portion of the profits to help buy canes for blind children to help them be able to get around. So I was gonna say, get that in front of me. Hide my beard.
Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
Where's your brother at?
That's a good question. I talked to him on the way down. I'll call and give him flack.
Give him a little flack for that. Okay. And thank you all for that. Let me get caught up. Next on the agenda, item 10 is reports. We have none. 11 is unfinished business. Item 11.1, consider an act on the second and final reading of an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of a right-of-way to the West Virginia Department of Highways for the 131 widening project. Manager, do you want to speak?
Oh, yeah, we discussed this at the last meeting. This is a small conveyance of property out near, on 131, out near our maintenance annex out there where our, the Parks and Recreation shop and our salt bins are, across from the bridge. As we mentioned last time, I think it's a big priority to the community with the amount of traffic going through there, especially now with the bridge, that we support this widening project. And what they're asking of us is not going to be a significant impact on our operation out there. So,
Okay, any action by council? Motion to approve?
Second.
A second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carried. 11.2, consideration and act on the second and final reading of an ordinance amending section 4-17 of the City of Bridgeport Employee Handbook and to update the workers' compensation policy to comply with the provider's recommendation and approving, enacting, and reenacting the City of Bridgeport Employee Handbook as amended. Manager?
yes, as reported last meeting, this change comes at the suggestion of our workers' comp company that we pay for that service. And basically, the way our policy reads now, that we've experienced a few incidents where we have people off on workers' comp who are being reimbursed between the city and workers' comp more than what they would make in their normal employment here. So this will clean that up, and it'll still leave the employee whole, but it'll be through the workers' comp and not through the city anymore. So.
Thank you. Any action by council?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. 12, new business. 12.1, consider an act on the reappointment of Jamie Parker to the Planning Commission for a term of 3 years from September 1st, 2025 through August 31st, 2028. Pleasure of the council. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion and a second?
Second.
And a second, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Consider an act on the reappointment of Drew Pomeroy to the Bridgeport Development Authority for a term of 3 years from October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2028.
So moved as read.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. 12.3, consider an act on a resolution authorizing the City of Bridgeport to enter into ratification and amendment of oil and gas lease amendment with Eastern Gas Transmission and Storage Incorporated and Long Ridge, West Virginia LLC, affecting that tract or partial of real estate identified on tax map 250 as parcel number 14.2, described as pump station number 2, Booth Creek, 3,600 square foot, containing 0.0826 acres, more or less, situated in the Simpson District of Bridgeport Tax District, Harrison County, West Virginia. Is there any action on council? But do you want to speak on that, manager? I'm sorry, or John?
Just
Please, it's, yeah.
in the way of an explanation, the city acquired location for a pump station out there, and the oil and gas underneath it was not reserved. It's held by production from a 1941 lease. It doesn't allow unitization or horizontal drilling, so this limits it to the Marcellus. It's a standard ratification agreement. It would allow them to continue operations out there. I'm sure you've all seen that they're going hot and heavy at it out there already, so.
Any questions of legal? Madam Clerk, do you want to read that into the record, or does it need to be read?
It could be read
By title only?
Yeah.
I think that's all right, unless anybody would prefer that it be read. Okay, action to council?
So moved as read.
Motion, is there
Second.
motion and second? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries. Saved you some reading, didn't it? Okay, 12.4, consideration and act on the purchase of an armored rescue vehicle manufactured by Linco Armored Vehicles Incorporated of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, in the amount of $400,000, with knowledge that the city will receive $200,000 reimbursement through secured grant funding upon the delivery of the vehicle. Chief Rogers, would you want to have a final word on that before we vote?
I can. I appreciate you taking this under consideration this evening. After our last meeting, I think that we showed that there is a need, even though it's not something we intend to use every day. It's having the tools at your disposal whenever that time does come. Since our last meeting, there's been some pretty horrendous things that's happened in our America, as well as in our nearby state, with officers and individuals being gunned down, for lack of a better term, just being unprepared at times. It's difficult. It's one of the things that, as an administrator for our department, I have to look at all these gentlemen and their families and make sure that I've done everything in my power to convey the importance of this piece of equipment. Hopefully I've done that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions of the chief manager?
I just want to add, the funding for the other half, and that was discussed a little bit. I just want to explain to you where that's going to come from. So the city has a pretty large capital replacement program, or our escrow program. So all of our major equipment and a lot of projects are escrowed a little bit each year. So with all the departments, all the equipment that we escrow, which I think is an excellent program for planning for us, but we have an amount of money sitting in the bank that's building until we make those purchases, and that money, it has a there's a return on that money because it is sitting in the bank. So there's an unallocated portion of money that comes from that's more than enough to cover this. So that's working with our finance director. That's where we propose to take those funds from, should you approve, which may result, I don't know how it works, I'll have to ask Sharon, but that may be a future budget revision.
So, point of clarification. So, none of the funds are being removed from an escrow account on major assets?
No, this is the interest from the money that's set aside now
Okay.
for interest that we've not earmarked for anything in the past, or anything yet, so.
Okay, so I was looking through that escrow account. I want to make sure that I understand which line item this is coming from, because there's on the finance department, there's an unappropriated interest account under the bridge special separate reserve. There's an unappropriated interest account. Is it coming from one of those two line items? Or is it coming, where's it?
I don't know exactly what you're looking at. It would be one of the 16 accounts. There's a pile of the precursor is 16 to those accounts, and that's generally, the bridge is a separate program, or their finances are a little separate from the general fund. So these are all general fund purchases, I think I have it on my phone here. If you need it, Chris, I can, no, she didn't give it to me, the exact thing, but it is the interest, earned interest accrued on the city's accounts, city's, capital replacement of accounts.
Well, so this is where, because if you look at what we're budgeted for interest coming in this year, it's like $275,000.
Right.
And we're on track to make it essentially that. You know,
Right.
It's going to fluctuate every year. But if you look at our budgeted revenue and our budgeted expenditures, they're equal. So that money, that interest coming in is already allocated somewhere. So what I think I'm hearing is you're saying it's coming from the
Well,
escrow account itself.
there's a special account.
Right.
It is reallocated into the account that I'm just talking about,
Okay.
but it's not necessarily earmarked for a project
Okay.
yet. There's
So then I was
there's several years worth of that $275,000 in there,
Right.
is what I was told.
Yeah, right, okay, so I'm assuming that in this summary that we were given when we came on council here, there's an escrow summary as of, I think it was as of May or so. And looking through all the different areas, there's only a few that actually have any kind of, that kind of, balance. One is future capital projects under the city manager. I'm assuming it can't come in out of any of the B&O ones, right? Cause that's gotta be for building and larger capital
Right.
projects.
Yeah, I know there's a few of those capital accounts that have been kind of set aside, because we have several big projects coming. And I think part of at least to my understanding, was that some of those funds would be used, we discussed a new police department and we discussed a new swimming pool.
Right.
And there's several things. So I think there's some of those interest things. There's that future capital projects account
Right.
that haven't been allocated by the council yet to any specific project. So they're just, they're kind of in holding there, waiting until we decide what's the next big project we're going to do. And that would help fund those.
Okay, because then as I look through this, within the police department, there's nothing there other than the public safety complex, and I assume we're not pulling from that. So then there's
But it
only-
could be interest from the money that's sitting there too, is the point of, all of those accounts are in the bank and they all earn interest, so yes.
'Cause my biggest concern, I just want to make sure if it does affect anything else, if there's a ripple effect, we fully take into account that ripple effect. It seems like there's a couple of pools of unappropriated interest where it's just sitting there waiting for something like this, but I would just really like to know that is where it's coming from.
Yeah, that's the way it was explained to me, that there's an account or I don't know if I'm using the right terminology. That there's an account of unappropriated earned interest from our capital reserve programs and our bank accounts. So it all the money the city has in the bank earns interest. And, that's where there's funds coming from. So.
Okay, hopefully we're saying the same thing, and I just happened to bring the sheet
Right.
here that has the specific stuff.
I thought it was on this paper, and I apologize.
Well,
the
that's
actual-
because the verbiage wasn't the same between our packet and what I see in the budget, and I'm still ignorant of some of the budget stuff. I just want to make sure I understand where it's coming from, because I'll tell you, Chief, I was a little hesitant on this, both from a money standpoint and just from the nature of the vehicle. But your presentation last week went a long way to changing my mind, and as I look at the budget, it certainly seems like it's more than viable. So I really appreciate the diligence that you guys put into that.
Chief, is it just one grant we're applying for, or is it several that we can or have?
We've received the grant for $200,000 with the caveat that we have to have an item in hand prior to receiving that money. So that's why the forthcoming is the $400,000 total.
Okay.
While we don't have to put that, I think there is a deposit we have to put down. We don't have to put it all down. But the thought is that we will continue to search for grants and opportunities throughout the region. I know Director Curry has told us about a couple of grants that he thinks that we may find. And then also I'd like to partner with some of our strategic partners within the community to try to bring that $200,000 investment from the city funds down a little bit. But also at the same time, just being aware that we need to make sure that there's a PO in place to place that order, and also that some of our partners throughout the community, their budgetary times are a little different than ours, so keeping that in mind.
Very good questions. Any further questions? All right, any action by council?
Motion to approve item 12.4.
Motion to approve?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion among the council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries. Congratulations, Chief. Item 12.5, consideration and act on restructuring the Community Development Office. Manager?
Yeah, so this was a plan to restructure after the loss of a couple employees. And basically, our community development office in the past has been in charge of our community development, but also the code enforcement. And that was separated when we made that employee also our chief information officer. And I would like for streamlining of our services, I would like to put the code enforcement, the person who was going to run that left the city, and I'd like to put that back under the code enforcement. I've cleared it with the state fire marshal as far as the structure. We still have our code officer in place, and we have we have a good succession plan underneath the code officer with our code enforcement officers that we currently have. It would just basically have that function answering through the community development office.
Thank you. Any action by council? Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it. Motion carries. 12.6, consideration and act on the approval of the interim city manager's recommendation of the creation of a customer engagement representative position at the Bridgeport complex. Manager?
Yes. So what's happened here is we have a full-time position that we are going to be moving to a part-time position. So we've had some other needs in the facility, and we want to create a new full-time position. So we're basically doing a swap. We're taking, we're eliminating one full-time position and moving it to another and swapping the part-time position. So it has no impact on our budget. It's just to reallocate staffing levels due to not only this individual staff members and their functions, but also to meet the needs of our customers out there. So,
My understanding is it's budget neutral.
budget neutral, correct.
Thank you. Any other questions, manager? Any action by council?
So moved.
Motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries. Item 12.7, discussion of charter review. I know we've all discussed it a time or two. Councilman Kenny asked me to make sure that we get the ball started on here because we may be in a time crunch. But can I say this just before we get started? I want to ask the city clerk to give us some input because there's actually my recommendation that there's two parts to this, because one part has to be the elections with the new law that passed, and I hope we can do it separate and quickly as we work on the other part. And if that's all right with everybody, and Councilman Kenny, you can either go first or we could ask the clerk. She's prepared to talk about the election part. Yeah, if the clerk would just bring us up to speed on some of the work and the research and information that you have on the election part.
Okay, so for the election part, as you all are probably aware, a bill recently passed that by 2032, our municipal elections need to coincide with the county elections. So upon some, a lot of review of different charters and everything, I've been in contact with the city of Clarksburg that's already been through this process, as well as the Harrison County Clerk's office, who we will have to work hand in hand with, and the Secretary of State's office. So a couple things that would change with this would be obviously the dates of the election, as well as the county will take over securing the polling locations and the poll workers. However, some of the things that will stay the same, The filing fee and location, you'll still file with the city clerk here, pay the filing fee. All of your financial statements will still come through here. The polling location specifically will be the same. And then our sample ballots will be ordered through the county clerk's office. However, we will be the ones to approve those. So those are some things that will stay the same. So my recommendation to kind of fix this prior to 2032 would be to propose and pass an ordinance to shorten the terms of those that were just elected in the 2025 election to 3-year terms to expire in 2028, so that when they're up for re-election, it would be on the 2028 ballot with the county. And then those that are up for re-election or would be running in 2027 would shorten those terms to 3-year terms as well, to then expire in 2030 to also run with the county election in 2030. Now, they're moving forward. Those that are elected on the county ballots in 28 and 30 will go back to 4-year terms after that. So it's just a 3-year term initially, but after 2028 and 2030, it'll go back to the 4-year terms. They'll still be staggering, so everybody won't be up for re-election at the same time. So if that is something that we would be interested in, our next and last, hopefully, municipal election would still be in 2027. We cannot lengthen terms of the officials, so that's why my recommendation is to shorten.
Well, so clarification on that, we can't lengthen our own, but we could lengthen a future one. If I understand when Clarksburg went through that, if we voted that the people elected in 2027, they could go 5 years. My understanding is we could do that. We just can't extend our own, which makes perfect sense because of a conflict of interest.
Sorry, go ahead. I did have a call with the Secretary of State's attorney. There is a state code that passed that some cities or municipalities are able to extend up to 18 months for terms. However, because we are a charter ran city, we cannot.
Well, right, and that's why I was proposing the charter review so we could look at that kind of stuff. But so essentially, if I'm understanding this, what you're looking at is rather than doing this by charter, you're wanting to do it by ordinance, which by charter we can do.
Yeah, we attended a training at the Municipal League, and they suggested that's the way, to do it. But, I mean, we can, as long as we do it properly and by the law, we can do it.
I mean, that's how the meeting dates change. If you look at the charter, we're supposed to meet on Tuesday, but by ordinance, it was proposed and changed.
Right, and certainly, everybody would have their own position on it. I certainly would be affected. I don't mind giving up a year of my term if that works best for the city and the citizens. And I know that the clerk has looked at all the options, so I don't know. I'm not sure if we have another option, really. And it's kind of strange because, and the question has been asked, legislature imposed this, but it requires a charter change. So what do you do if the citizens don't approve a charter change? There's no answer, but we're hoping there is some cleanup in this year's legislative session. But for now, I think just one of all of us is just probably our best route to go.
One question, you mentioned paper purchasing of the paper ballots. Would we have an option of paper versus computer?
The county strictly does the machines, so I think the elections would just go to machines. We wouldn't have paper ballots anymore.
Electronic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's paper on the way that we do the electronic, so that's the paper you're talking about, Bart. We'd have to buy, right? Because we're sliding that stuff in. It's
The ones that you stick in there.
Yeah, so there's still paper purchase.
Yeah, the county, the best of my knowledge, the county system is a dual system. They don't just rely on the electronic, they back it up with a paper form, which is the kind of long card that we see when we vote. So, and it has some work. I mean, there'll be more discussions for sure. I just wanted, I thought it'd be good to get that out tonight as we plan, going forward. It's a good discussion to start at any point.
So, on the charter review, that addresses some of what I was looking at when I submitted this proposal to all y'all. The primary purpose, why I thought we needed to get a charter review started immediately. There's been some newspaper reports that it was for the city manager stuff. That was secondary. Really, it's about the election and then aligning our charter with how we're doing our meetings now. So I thought those are the two things we have to address. We got to get our election cycle in place and not do it right up against 2032, because you run into all kinds of issues if we wait until a year or two before. And then to, again, get the meeting times aligned just so the charter matches the city code. But secondarily, just as I read through the charter, and these are just some recommendations other people could add or detract from this, but something I think that we as a city need to consider. We've already got term limits on the mayor. My personal opinion is there ought to be term limits on council positions as well, and there probably ought to be a lifetime limit. But again, that's open for discussion, but I think that's at least worthwhile discussion. When you all went to the municipal league, there are different ways to run a meeting other than Robert's rules, and oftentimes we don't get it right anyways. So is there a more efficient way to do it? But our charter mandates Robert's rules, so maybe we can look into and figure out a better way to run these meetings that facilitate better discussion. There's also a piece about there's a strict number put in there for city manager limit on expenditures. And gee whiz, you write that in 1990, whatever, that amount of money isn't the same anymore. And having it worded that way doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. There ought to be verbiage that says interest adjusted or as a percentage or something else. There's just got to be a better way to do that, because right now that's a pretty low bar number that's in our city charter. I do think it's worthwhile to look at the city manager qualifications. I know we had a letter read into the minutes last week expressing support for how it's written now, but I think we always need to review that. And I'm not going to sit here and be ignorant enough to say that all the issues we've had with city managers are just because of the qualifications that are in there. That would be an oversimplification of what's going on, but it's certainly worthwhile to look at. And I said on the campaign trail, I'm not a big fan of putting too high of a premium on formal education, especially when you're looking at somebody that's been a professional for years and years and maybe even decades. So that part I think is really what needs to be looked at. Minimize the strong requirement on that side of it. And then I think it's always valuable, just like we went through today. You talked about restructuring the way our city's set up. It's always viable to go back through and make sure we are structured in the most efficient way possible to get the best work done, the best bang for the buck. We owe it to our citizens to spend our money wisely, to maintain a proper percentage of cost that goes towards personnel and the cost that goes towards all the other stuff that we need. So we have money for a Bobcat, we have money for a new pole building, that kind of stuff. So it's at least worth looking at. So the timeline I put together, concerned about how it would affect the elections, was to start this process, to identify who would be on it this fall. We could meet through the winter, spring, and early summer and get a proposal that would then be able to be put onto the November general election. Now, based on your proposal, that certainly wouldn't work for the election changes that you're looking at. So that piece at least would probably have to be separate. But even then, we need to update the charter to match the ordinance.
Well, Chris, to be clear, I don't think it has to go to election unless, if the only suggestion, I was just talking to John, is, if your committee, that I know you're talking about forming, if it comes out with a bunch of recommendations, is that you tackle each one kind of differently or separately? Because, if we put a charter recommendation out to change the election and nobody objects, then we can pass that charter change, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There is, it's West Virginia Code 8-4-8, and you by ordinance can propose an amendment, which would have to pass. Then there would be a hearing on that at least 30 days after you pass the ordinance to consider the amendment. At that point, any freeholder or voter would be able to object in writing to that.
Yeah, I think that's what happened in Clarksburg.
If they object, yeah, it just takes one person, and then you either have to go to election or drop it.
And so that's I mean, just in case, I think we need to try to get a timeline where we can get this on the earliest election cycle as possible, just because, again, it just takes one person to get us there, right?
Well, you are allowed to hold a special election if it's not within so many days of a general election.
Okay.
So it's not prohibited all the time.
Especially if it's before 2032?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's, and the different ways that you do it, control what the timeline on that is. So we would have to sit down and hammer out the exact details of our timeline.
Okay, yeah. But the biggest thing is, just as I read through it, I mean, there's, a handful of issues right there that I just saw as potential. Anybody else reads through it, they may see some other areas. So, any documents that's 30 years old probably needs a review. Even if nothing comes out of it, I think it's worthwhile to make sure we've reviewed this. So that's the proposal.
Yeah, I would doubt that anybody would disagree with you. It's time to look at it. And if it's all right with Joe and the council, I know that the clerk has been doing some preliminary work on an ordinance to set out how we do the committee, how they work within. And I think, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we could put probably 3 elected officials on that committee, not more than 4, because then it would be a quorum.
That's correct.
And then we would appoint however many. I'm recommending 15, because I know it's such a big, decision that we should have more. But
I think there were 7 on the original.
On the original 7. Well, and I was thinking, and that's just me thinking out loud, and I won't do that too much. I figure each of us could throw a couple names in, and if a certain elected official wants to serve on that, then they can throw their name in. But if it's all right with Joe, if I make a recommendation that everybody get their recommendations to the clerk, and we start building an ordinance, and we'll probably have numerous discussions before we pound out something that works for us, and we'll involve legal, of course, and the city manager. I think that might be a good direction just to start. And I don't know that needs an official action. It just would kind of be how we get started. And then once we pound out the ordinance, that would, of course, need to come before everybody. Anything else? Yep. Anything else on that discussion? Thank you, Clerk. All right, that went quicker than what I thought it would. 13, council comments. Councilor Rominger, if you want to start, please.
Yeah. I'd like to thank Chief Hart for giving me a tour of the fire station. So I think we all know what you all do, but to see it in person is actually amazing. So thank you for that.
Councilor Rice.
Appreciate everybody coming. Chief Rogers, take care of that vehicle. Keep it shiny. Keep it inside if you can. And everybody be safe. I appreciate everything you do.
Councilor Burton.
I'd like to thank the parks maintenance crew for installing the water fountain at Compton Park. It's a park that I frequent with my dog, and there's probably 10, 15 other people that walk their dogs there, so they will appreciate it.
Corder Murray.
Thank you. I want to echo what you said about if anybody had a chance to get the bridge, I tell you what, I swear that's the busiest I've ever seen that place. It was hopping. And it was a busy weekend anyway with homecoming and everything, but that place was really hopping, and they did a great job. Thank you.
Okay, I think I've said enough. So with that being said, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved. Motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.